There are millions of podcasts being done all over the world that take on the personalities of their creator. Some bring in thousands of listeners each week. Some bring in large amounts of revenue, while others entertain millions and help sell products. If you're like many podcasters, you want to reach your maximum potential. But how? How do you make your podcast stand out from all the rest? Join Dr. Barrett Matthews as he talks to experts who are doing it on The Productive Podcaster. Hey everybody, this is Dr. Barrett Matthews and this is The Productive Podcaster. Welcome to another episode. What I want to do is welcome everybody. If it's your first time here, I want to tell you what the show is about. The Productive Podcaster is a podcaster for people who are either looking to podcast or who have a podcast. And what we want to do is show you that there is no cookie cutter way to do things in podcasting. You don't have to be like everyone else. So a lot of times people haven't started their podcast or they haven't progressed in their podcast because they're trying to be like someone else. Don't worry about that. Be yourself and your podcast will be as productive as possible. Now, the one thing I want everybody to do right now is to share, let everyone know that you're listening to the Productive Podcast, and let everyone know where they can find us so that they can listen and learn themselves. Also, we want you to make sure that you subscribe to the show as well. So as we start off every single show of the Productive Podcast, I do a segment I like to call Pros and Cons.
Pros and Cons.
Now, you're probably saying, what is pros and cons, Barrett? Pros and Cons is a segment we do where I give a pro tip to those of you who want to be a professional, productive podcaster. So we're talking about today about recording equipment. Now, I could do a whole segment on recording equipment, and what I'm not going to, and actually I do an event called Create Your Podcast Weekend, which you all can attend. The Create Your Podcast Weekend will go over more in depth about podcasting equipment. But I just want to tell you one thing that you can do. If you want to just get started in podcasting, you can get a simple USB microphone setup. That's right, a simple, you don't need to have all the soundboard and all that stuff there. We can talk about that later. But right now, just get a simple USB microphone setup, plug that into your computer, and you're good to go, man. Just get the thing started. That's the one thing we want everyone to understand is to get it started, get it moving, and you can start having a productive podcast yourself. So that is pros and cons for today. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break. And we'll come back. I'm going to have a special guest on. I know you're saying he always says he has special guests because my guests are special. So I will be right back with more of the Productive Podcaster. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Welcome back to the Productive Podcast, everybody. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I told you I have a very special guest. I'm bringing up Ziv Raviv. Let me tell you a little about him, first of all. The man, he has 6 brands. He's made over $305,000 in the United States in 2020. He's launched over 120 online courses. So you think he has some knowledge for you? I think he do. He's created 5 money-making podcasts. I said 5 money-making podcasts. And he knows how to coach people. He knows how to help them to double their income, triple their business income. He actually got some of them to reach their investment, like one of them to 66. So understand this. He's got a return of 1 to 66. Let me put it that way. Speak English this time, Barrett. But let me just say this. I'm excited, you can tell, about having him on the show. We've tried to get him on before, but we got him now. So I'm excited to have him on the Productive Podcast. And so I want you to give a Productive Podcast welcome to Ziv Raviv. Ziv, welcome to the show, man.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Productive Podcasters. And hello, Barrett, Doctor. This is so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad to have you, man. I'm very glad to have you. So tell everyone the name of your podcast and what it's about, first of all.
So one of the podcasts that is currently just finished a season is called Generous Marriage, the Generous Marriage Podcast. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a podcast that is niched into this idea that we men, sometimes we need a little bit of a nudge towards the relationship because we get so immersed into the hunt of careers and business and money hunting and providing to our family. But sometimes we forget that there are people waiting for us at home and that they have a lot more needs than just to have a provider around. And the Generous Marriage podcast is all about this idea of not waiting for something to happen, not waiting for the other person, the partner, to change, but rather to start within you. And a lot of times, lo and behold, when you are starting to change yourself, then people around you are changing too, and business starts to pick up in totally new and surprising ways.
Wow. The Generous Marriage Podcast. I like that. And that's interesting. I like the concept. I like the idea behind it. As men, a lot of times we are more reactive. We wait for the problem to come to us. And it's funny you said that because I was listening to a speaker a couple of years ago, and he was talking about how women, a lot of times they say we're not listening to them. And he said that it's not that men aren't listening. Men are problem solvers by nature, and we're waiting for you to give us the problem. And I was curious, what did you think about that?
Well, actually, it's funny. We're in this situation right now where a lot of people were wearing masks, and I was really interested. I didn't get to do it. Eventually, I was too busy with all of the other stuff. But we really wanted to produce this mask where on one side it says, "Please listen," and on the other side it says, "I need help." Right. So when you talk with someone, you can choose what type of a listen are you going to get? A listen that is focused on helping you fix something, right? Or just listen now, right? And this could be also like a hat with two.
It could. You should do it.
Yeah. And it's real. Like if you go to YouTube and you search for the lady with the nail in the head lady, something like that, you will see this ridiculously funny video about a lady that has literally a nail stuck in her head.
Wow.
And she complains about how painful it is and her partner wants to solve it. So he says maybe we just need to get the nail out, and you never listen. And this brings this clear situation in nature, not just for men and women. A lot of time, it's just the mindset of the partner. If the mindset is, I want you to listen to me, right? Or I need help. Right? It's just two mindsets that we have, and that we sometimes even transition between each other. Many men, most of the time, are in this mode of just hunting for problems and being result-oriented. So we don't even understand that we are screwing this over. And just listening is exactly what our partners need. So
I agree with you. And let me ask you this. As far as the people that listen to your podcast, do you find that you're helping a lot of men to understand that?
We have men and we have women listening to this podcast too. We have men coming to like download our unique gift that we have at the end of every podcast on every like podcast page. They go and download one, and then they go and like literally binge watch all of the different resources that we have. And we have people that buy our online courses and buy multiple of them and like just watch them through end to end. So it is something that people resonate with. It's very hard to, admit that you have a problem in your relationship. In fact, there were researchers around it, and it takes a couple 7 years from the moment that they already have problems all the way up to deciding that they're going to ask for help. 7 years.
Wow.
Can you believe how painful that would be if it was like just living with, I don't know.
And they say there's something called the 7-year itch. So maybe that's what they mean by that. Wow, that's a long time. So in what examples do you have where you said, with somebody said that you help them by what you do with your podcast?
So we have people contacting us in all sorts of situations. Sometimes it's really saddening and heartbreaking because they contact us when things are already broken, right? So they share with us that they are already split. The wife already have left the house, or they contact us to say, like, we're literally broke and our marriage is on the brink of divorce, and like we just don't know what to do. And sometimes like we interview people that are in all sorts of situations, including like we had a divorcee, a lawyer, a divorce lawyer that we have interviewed, because even when you run into the biggest of problems, sometimes the most generous thing to do is to put an end to it in a nice and gentle way, and in a fair way that honors the needs of both partners. So it's really hard because sometimes you get people to come to you and say that they want help, but it can also be sometimes too late.
Yeah, I get it. And that definitely can be. So how long have you been doing your podcast?
This one specifically we've done for 2.5 years.
2.5 years, wow.
And I've started podcasting in 2016.
Okay.
And right now, like, we're working on our 6th podcast, so I'm really excited.
Whoa. Yeah. I feel like an underachiever, man.
well, to be fair, like, we have a different approach to podcasting. We don't consider podcast itself to be like something that is the activity that is the goal of the podcast. The podcast has other goals other than just to have a podcast. So while I'll consider myself a podcaster, but most of the days I will wake up and say, I'm a business owner and I'm a coach, and rather than I'm a podcaster, because the podcasts are a tool to create an audience, to get people's attention, to actually solve problems in the world and provide value to people that you chose to serve. So that's right now what's really fascinating for me and turns me on is transformations. How can I actually make a dent in the world?
I got it. And that's good. And it seems like you are. So I have to ask you, since we're talking about a 6th podcast, what has been different about the podcast? Because I'm sure they're not all the same, but what's been different about how you do them so that people can learn that there's so many different ways to do a podcast?
It's funny. It's actually related to the 6th one because it's all about niching down and finding your micro niche, right? Like the productive podcaster is not just the productive business owner, right? Would be like the macro niche of productivity.
Right.
It's the productive podcaster, so specific, right? You know exactly who are your audience. You know where do they congregate. And I loved, like, there's 3 tests that you can apply on any niche to check if it's small enough and if it's efficient for you. And so, like, in every one of the podcasts we had, we actually tried to check if we are qualified with these 3 tests, because when you do qualify and you have a micro niche that is small enough, you will get results way faster because people will listen to you.
Mm-hmm. So are all your podcasts done in an interview style, or how are they done? What format?
So I would say 80% of the episodes are interviews.
Okay.
In general, we did, for example, a season. So we love the season model because it allows us to stop a season after 12 to 15 episodes and then have a break to create online courses or products or memberships or whatever, to communicate on the Facebook groups, to listen to our audience, to learn what do they need, and to learn about more people that might be a good fit for high quality podcast interviews. But we've done seasons where the entire season was only with like 2 interviews, and most of it was me talking about marketing, or me and my co-host in one of the 5 podcasts. I have a co-host where we did one season, which we just had this interesting format with like 3 things that happen in every single episode, like a story and a tool and a question. So it depends on the podcast, but in general, I would say my number 1 recommendation would be in terms of productivity and marketing power, you need to go for interviews.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, I mean, that's why I asked that, because there are so many different ways you can do it. Some like doing roundtable discussions. Some like doing them, solo. Some people love just talking the whole time themselves. And I prefer interviews myself because I think it makes it more entertaining and I can actually get more out of it. But it just depends on the person. Now, as far as getting your interviews, do you book them or do you have someone book them for you?
We have a team that does the outreach for us. And it didn't always been this way. So like these days we get a team member we give them a way to find suitable interviewees. And they will like create a list and start to do an email outreach for them or a Facebook chat outreach in some cases. That would be the number 1 way these days, because I got to a point where I'm so busy. So like, for example, this 2 days ago, I had a day with 18 meetings in one day. And this includes interviews, coaching sessions, most of it coaching sessions, classes in our online schools, group coaching sessions, like mastermind groups, the whole thing, but 18 of them in one day. Some of them are 30 minutes long, some of them are 2 hours long. So it's got to a point where I prefer always to work with a team and to get stuff done by them. If I can't get them to do it, then it will probably not be something I choose.
Now, I hope everyone is listening to that. It's important to have a team. Now, understand, if everyone listening, don't panic. You don't have to start out with a team. He said he didn't always have that.
No, actually, only after like the 4th podcast, I got to the point where I have the team.
After the 4th, so here's the thing, and I want everybody to understand it. Don't let that stop you from starting because you don't have a team. So to get it started. Now, I want to ask you, as far as your team is concerned, other than helping book, what else does your team help you with?
My team prepared the show notes. My team gets like there's someone that does the audio editing. My team create the graphics for the episode. So basically, once I've done the recording and I've put the recording in the right place and notified my team about it, then the next time I will look into it would be when I have a complete page on my site that is ready for me to inspect. I will go over the copy just to make sure it is respective towards the interviewee and that the unique gift works. So basically the team will, or maybe at some point the team will also present to me the plan of what will be the gift that we give at the end of each episode. But it's really like end to end operated by the team.
I love it. And you see, I have a team myself. I do the same, but I wanted them to hear it from someone different than me. So that is good because, I mean, the show is called The Productive Podcast. And what he's doing is he's making it so that he can be more productive. If he has to do everything himself, it keeps him, like those 18 meetings he had. Had he been spending all the time on his podcast, he wouldn't have been able to have those meetings. And that could have cost him revenue. So many of you out there, you have a business and you have a podcast, but you need something that's going to, someone who's going to help you so that you can focus on working on your business as well. Because unless you're somebody like Joe Rogan, you're not getting paid to podcast. So keep that in mind. So yeah. I want to, Ziv, before we let you go, I want to make sure that you let everyone know, once again, the name of your podcast and where they can find you.
So the name is Generous Marriage. The Generous Marriage Podcast on generousmarriage.com. And if you're interested to see a little bit more about the portfolio of podcasts that we do, then we have a website called kiwimedia.co. And that is basically where I show like the different podcasts that we run. And we actually have a service that we've launched half a year ago, which is called dailycookie.co, where we help podcasters nurture the relationships with their email list. So this is usually really good for podcasters that already got an email list of, I don't know, at least 200 people that are listeners that are engaging with them. And they just don't know what should I write about. And what Daily Cookie is basically a solution for providing a daily love through emails. And it's totally delegatable. Like it's a team of copywriters writing for you every single day with unlimited copy. It's like not like you won't need to negotiate every couple of weeks, and it's like a flat rate, very, very affordable. And we write copy that gets results.
And where's your podcast located?
So the podcast is at generousmarriage.com, and the new podcast that is going to launch really soon, it will be under dailycookie.co.
I'm saying, but where can they find it? The podcast.
It's on the top, like.
I mean, is it on Apple?
Oh, yeah, everywhere. Stitcher, iTunes. Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so thank you so much, Ziv Raviv. We thank you so much for joining us today on the Productive Podcast. So guess what, guys? He's not going anywhere. He's going to be right with us for our next segment, which is PodQuest, where we're going to answer an audience question. So I want you guys to stay right where you are. We'll be right back with more of the Productive Podcaster. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Why should you contact Media Boss Club right now? Well, because you can get a podcast done for you. You can learn all the aspects that go into putting together a great podcast and have someone else do it for you. That's right. We will build your podcast around your content and make it so you can concentrate on the money-making activities of your business. Contact MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com today and let us get your podcast started right now. All right, guys, welcome back to the Productive Podcaster. I told you, Ziv Raviv is the truth, man. He's bringing it. 6 podcasts. Incredible. I love that. But guess what? He's not gone anywhere. He's right here. He's right here beside me, everybody, as we bring up PodQuest.
PodQuest.
So with PodQuest, what we're going to do is we're going to answer an audience question. And many of you always wonder, well, how come I can't get my question answered? Well, one, what you have to do is you have to join our Facebook group, which is The Productive Podcaster. Join the group, engage with people. Now, once again, this group is not, I repeat, it is not for you to promote your podcast. If you do that, you'll be removed. So it's not for that. It's to help other people. That's what it's about. So if you want to come in and chime in, ask a question, or help answer a question, that's what it's for. So the question we have today is, are plays and downloads the same thing? So I'm going to let Ziv, I'm going to let you answer first. I know you have a very good answer for that.
So it actually can vary according to where you host your podcast. I use mainly Libsyn and Blueberry, and for both of them, they just call it downloads, and it could be that somewhere else they call it plays. I to the best of my knowledge, basically, they don't have a way to measure the plays. Once someone clicks on play, they know that there was a download, their hosting service. But I want to just suggest that maybe the number of downloads is not the metric that you should care about. And that doesn't really matter, because even in very, very small niches, what we call micro niches, with very little amount of downloads, like 100 downloads a week, 100 downloads a week, and you can create a 6-figure business. Can you believe that? So what is more important is not the number of downloads, but rather the number of people that sign up to your email list. So think about that. Think about what can you do to get them to listen to you, and then to have this huge desire that they cannot resist the urge of going into somewhere, most likely your website, and to opt into your email list for some really, really good reason. What is that reason? That is the puzzle that you need to solve.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I agree with everything he just said. And I've seen the same thing, that they don't really have a way to distinguish the plays from the downloads. It's all downloads is what they consider them. But like Dave just said, what are you doing to convert those downloads into something? Because I mean, even if your goal is not money, even if your goal is just to have people listen to your podcast, you're going to have to engage them. You're going to have to engage them in some way. So as he mentioned, your email list, find a way to engage the people, and you'll have people that are loyal, that will share your podcast, that'll let everyone know what you're doing. You'll have a loyal following, but you have to figure out what you're going to do with them. But as far as we know, there's no metric to actually tell the difference between the two. So Ziv Raviv, once again, I want to thank you for joining me one more time on the Productive Podcast. And once again, give the name of your podcast and let them know where they can find the podcast.
So anywhere you look in Stitcher or iTunes or wherever, just look for Generous Marriage Podcast, and you'll be able to learn more about how to create a better relationship in your marriage. Generous
Marriage Podcast. Guys, make sure you go right now and subscribe to his podcast, and make sure you're following him. So one more time, I'll thank you, Ziv Raviv. So guys, guess what? It's time to move on to our next segment of the show. The next segment is our podcast profile. That's where I listen to a podcast, and I think you guys may be interested as well. And the podcast I listen to, you're going to love this. It's the Will Smith Podcast. You're saying the Will Smith Podcast. Yeah, yes, the Will Smith Podcast. But guess what? It's not Will Smith, the actor. It's not Will Smith. It's actually a podcast. This is why I'm telling you guys, you can do a podcast on anything. It's a podcast of Will Smith fans. His fans, they talk about his movies. They talk about what he's done. And it's incredible. And it's actually, you can go to JazzyJeffFreshPrince.com to listen to the Will Smith podcast. So I was listening to it the other day. I thought that was so cool that you can make a podcast about anything. And I wanted to just let you guys know, stop putting barriers in your way, because you can do a podcast. Now, it's also time now for our podcast giveaway. That's right, our podcast giveaway. Today's winner of the giveaway is Sharon Frame. Sharon Frame is going to get our podcast recording session door hanger. This is not paper. It'll stick on her door. It's sturdy to keep people from disturbing her while she is doing her podcast. So Sharon, I want you to look forward to that coming your way, because you got that coming to you. Now you're probably wondering how you can get in the giveaway. Once again, join the Productive Podcaster Facebook group. Join the Facebook group, and you too can have your name called. Once again, don't promote, just engage with people, and you can have your name called as well and get one of our giveaways. So time for our last segment of the show, and that is one of my favorite segments, which is where I give a productivity quote. As you know, I've been doing a lot of quotes from Sunday Adelaja, and Sunday Adelaja has another great quote, and it's, the only way to live a life without regret is to make sure each unit of time that passes is being converted into product. The only way to live a life without regret is to make sure each unit of time that passes is being converted into product. So make sure that you're doing something productive to make every second count each day, everyone. So once again, guys, I want to have you guys to go and subscribe to your Productive Podcaster. I want to make sure you're sharing it with everyone. And I want to make sure you join our Facebook group. And if you want to support us, you can go to our Patreon, Productive Podcaster, support it and get some of the great perks we have for you guys. Wait till you go over there and see them. You'll see what I'm talking about. Go to Patreon, the Productive Podcaster. So once again, guys, I want to thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. As I always say, don't just settle for being awesome. Set your goal to all them all. And take action, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Productive Podcaster. Be sure to join us next time for another great show. We welcome your engagement, so make sure you participate by joining the Productive Podcaster Facebook group and chime in. Also, share the Productive Podcaster with some of your friends right now. If you have a podcast and you're looking for guests, or if you would like to be a guest on a podcast, join our podcast exchange at www.podcastworlddirectory.com. We'll see you next time.